I have a lot of kids, like a lot of kids. So naturally you would think group subjects would be my bread and butter. Not exactly. I kind of have the same problem that Murad III did. I mean, don't we all? Murad was the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in 1574. The empire stretches at this time all the way up through Austria and down past Egypt. It's massive. There are so many different religions and cultures and people under the Ottoman Empire's control that there isn't really a good way for one person to rule them well. Fortunately for Murad, he has 19 legitimate sons to inherit his throne. Traditionally, you would think that's not a terrible position to be in, and usually the king wants lots of sons to ensure there's an heir. Except there is this law in the Ottoman Empire dating back to around 1481 that said, "The majority of legists have declared that those of my illustrious children and grandchildren who shall ascend the throne shall have the right to execute their brothers." Yeah, so Murad's son, Mehmed III, ended up executing his brothers upon inheriting the throne. So what does that have to do with homeschool group subjects? And there is a reason. I do have one. I didn't just bring this up. Here's the thing. Murad had a huge empire. It's currently being run by about 20 modern governments. If he had taken the time to divide his empire equally between his sons, they could have formed this massive family alliance and pushed their Ottoman borders further into Europe and Asia. So why didn't he? Fear. Fear of failure. Absolutely a legitimate concern, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm a 15th century Ottoman politics expert. This is the same fear that we face today. When we homeschool, we are inundated with fear. Fear of doing it wrong, fear of our kids falling behind, fear of the Mongols attacking our eastern border. I think I got that wrong. I have 6 kids. Rather than trying to pack in my toddler with my 8th grader when we're tackling history, I divide it up. Sometimes it's more work to get us all together and focused and listening than it is just to separate it out. Now don't get me wrong, there are lots of things that we do all together as a family, but trying to gather all of us up together at once and people are throwing food and it's noisy, sometimes it's just easier to be like, I'm just gonna separate you out. It'll be easier this way. So I have another theory as to why Murad did not split up his empire and chose one prince to rule them all. Kids are not carbon copies of each other. They all have different interests, different levels, and they're going to learn things at a different rate. Group subjects cast this illusion that the kids are all going to learn the same things at the same rate at the same time, and that's not always the case. We absorb things differently. If you have a brilliant 2nd grader who's doing 5th grade math, a logical conclusion would be to pair that 2nd grader with the 5th grader who's doing 5th grade math as well. And that pairing a struggling learner or even an average learner with an accelerated learner can cast a pallor on home life and put a stress on those relationships that we're so desperate trying to build. And this isn't the case for all homeschools, and I don't mean to imply this is the case for every group subject, but it's definitely something to consider when you are putting together and organizing your group subjects. Is this going to reinforce healthy relationships between myself and my kids? Or is this possibly going to add more friction and contention? So as a rule in my homeschool, we do not pair math, spelling, or reading. Those 3 subjects, they need to get individually one-on-one with me. I do occasionally line them up where we all do math at the same time, but they're doing their own levels respectively on their own. And this is fantastic because then they can hear lessons from older kids. We can make connections between lessons. It gives them a sneak peek on what they're going to learn in the future, possibly give them a refresher of what they're learning from before. And I love doing subjects like math, like reading together in that way. And I find this crucial to split those 3 specific subjects up because they are the basic building blocks for learning anything they want. If they can nail those 3 things down, then the world is opened up to them and they should be tailored, and part of the reason why we homeschool. My biggest issue when I'm homeschooling, however, is homeschooling with littles. If I'm being completely honest, homeschooling with the baby is the hardest. And if this is something you struggle with as well, I definitely check out this video next.